so much. Thank you for the great program. Scotty Green with Canadian American Business Council. My question, kind of two questions related. One is, why do you think that the president has to get a victory at all? When you look at the Muslim ban or repeal of the Affordable Care Act or moving the embassy in Israel or currency manipulation with China or any number of things that he has said he needs to do, and then he doesn't get there and he changes his mind and moves on to something else. So why are you so convinced that he has to have a win? No, he wants one and all of that, and I know Lighthizer wants to deliver it. But in a related question, some of us here in the room have been playing this little game with each other by text, which is the possibility, likelihood of various outcomes. And the one I want to ask each of you is, we seem to be veering between apocalypse and a modernized NAFTA. And my question is, do you think that the status quo is a possibility? Not that it would be good or not, but what are the odds of, the U.S. just gets distracted. Canada and Mexico put their heads down and say, well, it's not perfect, but it's better than the apocalypse. So what are the odds of that? Thanks.
That was actually one of the scenarios that I mentioned. I think that is very likely and not a bad one, is just negotiating on until it sort of disappears when tax reform and other things take over. And given that not much good can come out of this negotiation, I think that may be the best option. And it has happened with other things. The Affordable Care Act, and in some sense, there's a similarity here that I'm not sure Trump really wants to own NAFTA, like he didn't want to have anyone call it Trump Care. And so it might be easier just to let this go off into the night. And as they start talking tax reform, and if it looks likely, and Congress wants to do tax and doesn't really want to do anything bad on NAFTA, I think that will play a role as well. There's also a very oddball possibility that he could terminate it with a tweet without actually terminating it by not putting a deadline on that. So I do think it just kind of going on and on like TTIP is now is the most likely and not necessarily the worst outcome.
The Thomas Friedman article yesterday on the Trump doctrine, was it Obama built it, I broke it, you fix it? So this isn't, Obama didn't build NAFTA, but maybe there's something in that. There was another description of the Trump doctrine a week or so ago, which said it's basically withdrawal. And withdrawal in different ways. Out of TPP, okay? Then out of Paris, out of UNESCO, out of the Iran deal, but not written, maybe, at some point. So withdrawal seems to be a thing. This is isolationism. This is a return to isolationism. And I think there's something about President Trump that we all have to recognize, which is that he's not like other politicians. I was at a conference recently and somebody said, these are just politicians, they make promises and then they walk away. He doesn't. That's it. I mean, up until November of last year, I would have agreed. But the fact is he's come in and he's tried to do so much of what he said he was going to try to do in his campaign. And I think that NAFTA is one of those issues that he wants to get something out of it. I think that this is a core issue for him personally and for some of the people around him. I think it's part of his worldview. So I don't see him backing off from this. And I actually see, he's been pretty clear about this, which is that, NAFTA is a bad deal, the worst deal we've ever signed on to. And so if he doesn't get the deal that he wants, he's pulling out. Now, what that pulling out means, is it a tweet? Is it, that he sort of turns it over to Congress somehow? I don't know what that is. But he knows that he has the power to do it. And I think, think about the way that he's operated throughout his life. He likes to get into these kind of negotiations. He likes to be the powerful player. And he likes to throw his weight around. He's currently in charge of the world's largest economy, or at least of the world's largest government. And he's anxious to use that way. That's what he wants. That's why he's talking about bilateral trade deals. And that's why I think that the end game isn't NAFTA, the end game is the WTO.
So I want to, acknowledge our speakers. I think they've given us good insight from an economic from a company perspective and from more of a thinking perspective. But one of the things that I've had a lot is this: is it gloom and doom? Is it going to be Armageddon? Are we going to withdraw? What's going to happen? I have had a lot of clients, but these are the large companies who've said, for us, we can actually do better if we were able to implement the trade facilitation agreement and all of the provisions in that on a global basis, and we're able to get more regulatory coherence. That helps us more than any free trade agreement. The duties are a nuisance. It's not a big deal. If we can deal with some of these other issues, our ability to get into those markets, get into them effectively, we don't need a free trade agreement. We can compete. That's good for the big guys, but it's the small guys that have that 2%, that 3%, that 16%. That makes a huge difference to them. So one of the things is, it's like you want to help the really big guys, or you want to look out for the small guys. So I think it's something that, when we're looking at it from a long-term perspective, what's going to happen, we have to calculate some of that in there as well. So I hope all of this has given you all some food for thought. And with that, we'll end, and Ken, you can tell us about the next event.
Thank you. Thank you to our panel. Thanks to all of you for sticking with us for this panel discussion and the speech earlier. Really, really informative panel. Thank you so much. Really grateful to all of you. I'm an eternal optimist, and I always think that if deal makers want to get to yes, they're going to find a way. So we're going to keep having this conversation, and we're going to keep hosting it here at RITA. We've got 6 more events in this NAFTA series, and they've extended the negotiating deadline just so we can keep these events going. So we're very grateful to them for that. We have, as Nicole said, we have 2 more NAFTA events this year at least, on November 9th on manufacturing, December 7th on energy. We may do something on pulling out of NAFTA, or what it would mean and how it would be effectuated. We're trying to figure out if we can get a date on that, so that may watch your inboxes. And next week, our GAD at 70 reception here in the building. Hope all of you can join us for that. I think it'll be a lot of fun celebration of the multilateral and world trading system. Thanks all for being here.